Well, holy shit. I actually managed to do it. After procrastinating for ages, I finally managed to produce an audiobook version of the Lunatic Fringe book. It's currently available on all Amazon sites, audible.com, and shortly on iTunes. And if you're the page-turning type, it's also, of course, still available in Kindle form, paperback, and hardback on Amazon. 10 hours and 10 years worth of Blue Skies Magazine's articles, all available to you right fucking now, including a few author's notes and even an apology or two. Enjoy.
Blue skies call. They seduce us, pulling us irresistibly upwards, reminding us to fly our own line, on our wings, and in life. We are the seekers, adventurers, being one with the air, feeling everything and nothing at once. That's the magic we chase. Follow the call. Find your pure, wild flight with NZ Aerosports.
Of course, I absolutely love the NZ Aerosports business model. I mean, come on. One glance at an Icarus fuck yeah sticker and you know it lines up perfectly with the fucking pilot mentality. But outside their wonderful use of colorful language and a great company vibe, there's a long list of reasons to say NZ Aerosports fuck yeah. NZ Aerosports blows me away right out of the gate as a canopy manufacturer with a bold offer. They give you 10 jumps on your brand new nylon to decide if you want to keep it, swap it out, or even return it for a refund. I mean, seriously, how incredible is that? That's like getting halfway through a prom and deciding you prefer the slightly racier date that goes down faster. Seriously, they do that. If you're not madly in love with your new canopy after 10 jumps, they'll let you swap it out for another size or model, or even get your money back. And the range of canopies they've got? Man, they've got a style canopy to fit every jumper and every situation with models you know and trust. Like the Sapphire 3, the perfect choice for the beginner or intermediate canopy pilot. The Crossfire 3, when you're ready to kick it up that elliptical notch. The JFX 2, if you're looking to up your new swoop game. The Leia as the workhorse and dirtwater dirt beast. Or the Petra. The Petra cranks out crazy power and is nothing short of a record breaker. But hey, it's not always about speed either. Take the Kraken. Built as a low pack volume canopy specifically with wingsuiting in mind, she gives you all the performance you're looking for with the reliability you need that'll have you itching for that next formation, rodeo, or puffy cloud. So, the equipment is top-of-the-line kick-ass stuff as you already know, but how about the team? Well, the customer service gang is there to sort you out whenever you need them. Maddie and Beto are always there to help with Jen holding the reins. They're available for you at sales@nzaerosports.com, and they've got a kick-ass live chat tool on the website if you're wanting to hit someone up right away. These are the crew you're going to want to talk to get those custom orders in. With the stock nylon, once you know what you want, they'll have that shit on a FedEx truck as soon as the credit card machine says approved and get you in the air in no time. For your custom orders, you'll be able to get a time frame for building and shipping when you design it, so get to it. And demos. They've got demos in the US available from their partner Rock Sky Market. The whole US demo fleet is there with Sapphire 3, Crossfire 3, Kraken, JFX2, and Leia canopies in a range of sizes. They also offer student and tandem demos in the US. Bottom line, every step of the way, NZ Aerosports is there to get you what you need, and I personally couldn't be happier to be teamed up with them here on Lunatic Fringe. And now, time to get started with Lunatic Fringe Into the Void, brought to you proudly by NZ Aerosports. Fuck yeah.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! Back in the can for another edition of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void with a hell of a guest that I'm just going to dive straight into. No preamble on this one. Tell me, who the fuck are you and what do you do?
My name's Guy Manos. I'm a lifelong skydiver, tunnel flyer, currently an options trader, and always a filmmaker.
Nice, nice. You know, it's kind of funny too. People, the newer generations coming up might not know the name, but I guarantee they know the shit that you've done.
Yep.
You've been a busy guy.
Yep. My first movie was Cliffhanger, and then the first script I ever wrote. They tell you when you write a script that you've got to move out to Los Angeles and you've got to wait tables or park cars for 5 years, and you've got to peddle your script and push it all around. I typed the end, and within a couple of weeks, we had a deal at Merv Griffin Productions to make the movie.
Awesome.
And then Merv ended up selling it to Paramount, and from there it got turned into a $72 million movie, which was a really big budget back in those days.
I mean, it's still a pretty good sized budget now, but for your first shot out the gate, that's insane.
Yep, first shot out. It was, and I didn't know any better. And so I'm walking into all these meetings with, big time directors and movie stars. And I thought, oh, this is what the movie business is like. So sure. I was really fortunate.
I mean, isn't that kind of how it goes though? You don't know that you're not supposed to be able to do that. So you just do it.
Absolutely. And we had another ace up our sleeve. And I didn't really realize what it meant until years later, but Norman Kent and I had made this movie in '86, and we split it into two parts. Norman took the skydiver market and made a movie called From Wings Came Flight. And it was a VHS that you would pop into your deck, and it was, you'd play it at a skydiver party and stuff and watch it. And then I took the other market, the civilian market, and made a documentary for the A&E network. That A&E channel on cable?
Absolutely.
And we called that part Flight of the Dream Team. But if you watch both shows, you'll see that it's, 80% all the same material, but just one took a slant toward the skydivers and the other took a slant toward the commercial audience.
Sure.
And so we had this video when I started trying to get this script done. And so we took it to the producer at Merv Griffin Productions. And we took the script, and he said, no, get out. And we said, well, no, wait a minute, check out this video. And we thought that he would watch it for, 2 or 3 minutes. And he watched the whole half hour. And when the half hour was over, he said, run that again. And we knew that we had something going. So he said, okay, I was wrong. You're right. We're going to write this script. And so we wrote this script called Dropzone. And then we took it to these two big shot producers that he knew in Hollywood. And they said no. And we said, no, wait, watch the video, watch this video. And they called up and they go, okay, you were wrong. We were wrong. You were right. Let's do this. And so then they took us to a big shot at Paramount Pictures. And he said, no, get out. And we said, no, wait, you got to watch this video. And the same thing happened. And then he took it to his boss, and then to his boss, the woman who ran the whole studio, Sherry Lansing. Everybody, same story. They say no, they watch the video, they say yes. And then we went to movie stars, same thing. Sylvester Stallone wanted to do it. Michael Douglas wanted to do it. Steven Seagal was negotiating for it for a while. And then Wesley Snipes, and the same thing happened with all these guys. They read the script, they say, no, get out, don't come back. And then they see the video and they said, wait, come on back. Right. And so it was the visuals that we had to offer them that intrigued them, because we had tandem, we had wind tunnel, we had big ways, we had, competition, we had canopy stacking, everything that we could think of, we put in that movie, if you remember, and it all paid off because all those elements ended up in the big movie,
which is absolutely amazing. And I want to jump. We'll come back to Dropzone, but I want to jump back to the beginning, because obviously you had to have a solid base in everything skydiving long before you got to that point. So how the hell did you get your start in jumping?
Okay, 4th grade, they had a book in the library. And so when I was in 4th grade, I knew what a Mae West was. I knew what a streamer was. I knew what an arch was and what the frog position was. I knew all this stuff from reading this 4th grade book. Then a few years later, I'm at a fireworks display in a high school football stadium.
Mm.
And the plane goes over, and they've got this great announcer, and he's telling us what's happening, and he shows us the plane as it flies over. And these guys fly way over the stadium and way out to the horizon, and they jump out. You know, it seemed like 10 miles away with these round parachutes that were called paracommanders, PCs.
Yep.
And as soon as they open, the announcer goes, "Oh, and it looks like a perfect spot, and they're going to come land right on the 50-yard line." And everyone in the stadium's looking at each other and going, I don't think these guys are going to let, I mean, they were sinking down the horizon.
Right.
And sure enough, every one of them came in and did a stand up right on the 50-yard line with PCs. And my jaw was on the ground. And all I could think was, I am going to do this one day. So then a few years later, I'm in high school, and there's this career day, you know, where a doctor comes in and tells you what it's like to be a doctor, and a lawyer comes in, you know, all these different people.
Sure.
And Bobby Gates comes in from the Cleveland Sport Parachute Club and shows us a 16 millimeter film, because there was no videotape in those days. Shows us a 16 millimeter film, hands out his business card, hands out his brochure, and tells us how when we're all old enough that we can come to his place and jump. Well, I grabbed that brochure and, you know, clutched it in my fist and kept it until I was old enough. And then at 18, I went out and made that jump, and then relocated down to Florida to go back to school, and picked it up at Homestead, Florida, where I made my first, 1,000 jumps or so.
Wow. Well, and Florida, especially then, was Mecca. I mean, that's where you went.
Yep. And it was also, not only was it the Mecca of the skydiving industry, it was also the Mecca of the drug smuggling trade. and so my first rig, I should say, not my first rig, my first rig that had a square in it was, it was back when vectors were called Wonder Hogs.
Yep.
And I bought the Wonder Hog of a guy who went down to South America and never came home. And his girlfriend was a skydiver, and, you know, it had been 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. And so finally she decides to sell this dude's rig. And that was my first rig, was a drug smuggler gone bad.
Holy shit.
And I love that rig. I think I slept with that rig.
Yeah, I mean, everybody is kind of, at least from my generation on back, has heard the stories of how a lot of the aircraft and stuff got into skydiving, and how a lot of money got into skydiving. But I don't think the newer generation realizes what close ties the entire sport of skydiving owes to drug smugglers.
It was such a fun period. And, you know, years later, I was like the, you know, big shot, big way organizer.
Right.
And so we would be at a boogie where there were, you know, 3 DC-3s lined up, and I'm organizing the big way for the morning, and I need all 3 of these planes here in the morning. And then at sunset, 2 of them take off, and it's the end of the day. We're done jumping.
Right.
And then these planes take off and fly off over the horizon. And I go to the drop zone owner, "Hey man, you know, those are my airplanes. I need those things tomorrow." "Oh no, they're just going out for some maintenance. They'll be right back." You know, and the next morning at 6 a.m. they'd roll in, and you know, nobody ever said anything, but we all knew that they'd been working that night.
Of course. I mean, as a longtime jump pilot now, I've had many a conversation of, would you have if you were flying back then? And it's always a good giggle, because everybody knew that was the side hustle for, you know, for everything. That's how all these big aircraft got started in skydiving, because they were doing some other stuff.
Yep. We had a Lodestar that would just roll into Homestead completely unannounced. And, you know, they'd say, "Who wants to make a jump?" And, you know, I was kind of the organizer guy, and I'd say, "Well, you know, what's the minimum load? How many people do you need?" "Don't worry about that. Let's just get some jump on the books, you know, so that we can."
Yeah.
And I understood, and I said, "Okay, man, we're doing an 8-way out of a Lodestar, you know, and anything so that they could say that they were gainfully employed as legitimate jump."
Sure.
Ship.
So you started jumping down in Homestead. First off, what did the family think of you jumping out of airplanes? Because this is back when it's still my favorite skydiving t-shirt, when sex was safe and skydiving was dangerous.
Yes, it was.
So what does the family think of you taking up skydiving?
My parents were thrilled that I did it. It was a great story to tell at dinner and stuff like that. But then when I started, trying to save money to buy equipment and then trying to bum money off my parents to buy equipment, my dad looked at me, he goes, "Hey, I'm not supporting this,"
Right.
And so I had to struggle with them for that. And what was funny about it is that even when when I started appearing in the magazines and, in commercials and even when we won the world meet in 85, really didn't get a big reaction. But then that world meet landed me 3 guest appearances on the old Merv Griffin show. And suddenly all my skydiving was legit and everything,
Yeah, because Merv said it was.
Yeah, because Merv said that it was cool. And so suddenly all was forgiven. And I was introduced as my son, the skydiving champion.
So how funny is that? Because I grew up, half of my listeners, if not more than half, have no fucking clue who Merv Griffin is. But I grew up on, watching that. So I wonder if all those years ago I saw you on that show. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, I used to do the it was right in sync with Tandem, being let loose on the world. And so
Sure.
I was the Tandem instructor to the stars.
Wow.
And it made for great shows on Merv's show. And he read the fan mail and knew that there was something to this skydiving. And that's why he greenlit the writing of the script, because he had a fledgling film division at that time. And so he said, there's something about this skydiving that's marketable. Let's exploit it.
See, that's insane to me that now, especially because of the movie that we're talking about, and we'll definitely get into it more, but because of that movie spawned an entire generation of skydivers. That and Point Break were the 2 pivotal movies in most, especially my generation's upbringing in skydiving. To find out that that's all tied to Merv Griffin, that's awesome.
Yeah, and his son is my best buddy, and I took him jumping for the show, and he was one of one of my writing team
Nice.
on Drop.
Nice. Now, what was your first gig in skydiving?
First gig in skydiving. Okay, so I made like my first 100, maybe 200 or 300 jumps the regular way, just paying my way and loving it, and then right around 150 jumps is where I really got bit. I mean, it really stole my soul. And it was all I could think about when I'm sitting in classes in college. I'm sitting there doodling skydiving formations while I'm supposed to be taking notes.
Sure.
And the nice thing about being in Miami is that there's a huge commercial market there for commercials.
Yeah.
And in fact, all of Europe comes over to Miami during their winter. It's our winter too, but it's still sunny and blue.
Sure.
And so the Italians, the Germans, they all come over to shoot their commercials. And so I got a yogurt commercial and a blue jeans commercial and I think a couple cigarette commercials back then. And those were my first paying gigs. And then by 82, there was this new thing out called AFF, where you held your student in free fall and helped him through his first free fall rather than putting him out on static line. And so I was one of the first people to get that rating. It was very much a brand new thing, and it was cool because I got it from one of the founders, Rocky Evans.
Awesome.
And so we started doing AFF down in Homestead, and it wasn't like I was being paid because I was racking up a bigger bill at the manifest than I was in being paid as a jump master. So I never saw any of the money, but
Right.
I started jumping for free basically at that point. And then that kind of snowballed until I started getting published in the magazines and gear sponsorships and things like that. And then after the world meet, it was pretty much a free ride, anywhere I went. Of course, I was coaching and organizing and working it, but I wasn't digging into my pocket anymore.
Sure. Well, and it's pretty wild that all transitioned into doing the script writing and stuff. Because again, back then, skydiving was still very far from mainstream. I mean, it was still considered what most people would have called a very extreme activity, and nowadays it's very mainstream. So it was a different time.
Yeah, it was perfect for me in that script because no one had seen tandem. No one had seen a wind tunnel. No one had seen canopy stacking, and no one had seen the really big ways.
Sure.
And so to come into Hollywood with these images to peddle, and of course telling them that I'm the only person on the planet who can give them those images, it was a nice a smooth way in.
Sure. Well, now, where did the original idea spawn to sit down and write a skydiving-based movie?
It was Tony Griffin, Merv's son, and I had written a bunch of treatments. Now, a treatment is like a 1 or 2 page version of the movie.
Okay.
And what you do is you try to hustle those around, and if you're lucky, someone will pay you to write the 110 page version of the same story. And so we had this skydiving based treatment in our portfolio. And when I went on the Merv show, I got introduced to the producer, who was also the head writer of the Merv Griffin film department. And so we stepping stoned it from there.
Now, what was the first Merv Griffin experience like? What was the reason that he had you on? What was going on?
It was because we had just won the world meet, and we had beat the Soviet Union.
Oh.
And they had never come to a world meet before, and they claimed all the records in competition. And so, like, let's say the Golden Knights would set a new record and do 11 points in 4-way, and they would announce this world record in Parachutist magazine. And then the Soviets would come out and say, oh, yeah, we did a 12 at one of our own meets. And of course, there's no one there. There's no other countries there to say whether this happened or not. But all of a sudden, there's this presence in out there in the force that there's this, badass Soviet team that's one step ahead of the Americans.
Sure.
And so when we went over to Yugoslavia and finally competed against these guys and won, it was a big deal for America. I mean, I got a letter from Ronald Reagan, and it was a big thing. And so being world champion got me my entree to the Merv Griffin show. And then, of course, the idea that I could take some of his, television and movie stars for a jump, that was even better.
Sure.
And so the first time that the country saw tandem was on the Merv Griffin show.
Which
I should say, in terms of television, there were a few shots of it in like the National Enquirer and the National Star. There were a few tandem shots there, but it was the Merv show where people first saw somebody strap somebody on and take them for a jump.
That's pretty crazy forward thinking of that show in that time, because I mean, especially back then when they didn't have the numbers that we have now and all the statistics that we have now, to throw a famous or semi-famous person out of an airplane not really knowing what's going to go down, that's pretty ballsy of somebody like Merv to be so forward thinking.
He was. And I mean, you're talking about the guy who invented Wheel of Fortune,
right? Who
invented Jeopardy and owned all of them. I mean, this guy was, on the ball, and he knew how terrifying skydiving was because I dragged his son out a couple times. and so he just he smelled money, and we did those shows, and it was good for him, good for me, good for all of us.
Well, and he put on a good show too. I mean, the guy had quite the on-camera personality as well. So it's very cool to hear that he also backed it up with the savvy to make it work. Yep.
And a few years later, he bought a big casino out in Nevada, and we all brought a bunch of showgirls in. It was a mass tandem demo.
Awesome.
So yeah, he knew how to get people's attention.
Sure, sure. So when you sit down, okay, we're gonna put together a movie and we want it skydiving based. Drop Zone is an iconic movie, and this story is a fantastic story, and the way that it's done is really fun. Where did it all come from?
The first thing that I was peddling was much closer to the Cutaway storyline,
Okay.
a movie that came a few years later. And that got, they grabbed all the best parts of it, or I should say Hollywood grabbed what Hollywood thought were the best parts of it and threw away what they didn't like, which is exactly what they do.
Sure.
And we wrote a new story based around, there was a huge, a lot of canopy stacking in the first one. And it was explained as the only way that you could get, you could fly a further distance if you stacked your canopies. And that was the trick. And only a few people were good enough to do it. And that would be the lawman's clue that would bring him to the source of who the actual bad skydivers were and stuff like that. And then it morphed a dozen times, through the rewrites. And I was fortunate enough to be able to stay on the writing team through all the rewrites because I was the technical guy.
Sure.
And so even though my best friends and writing teammates got canned, I was able to stay on as the next guy came in and the next writer and the next writer, which is what Hollywood does. They go through dozens of them, but I was able to keep a grip and keep my position there as the technical advisor.
So now, as the technical advisor, I can think back to the movie where there's a few obvious times that Hollywood did exactly what Hollywood does and kind of stretches the truth quite a bit. Did you have to fight to keep it as realistic as you could in regard to the skydiving?
Not really, only because they don't listen. I mean, you could throw a temper tantrum or scream. I mean, I think there's shots where Wesley is crawling toward the door and his chest strap isn't hooked up, or there's all kinds of gaffes in the whole thing.
Sure.
But they really liked the idea that, well, there was a little bit of parachute drug smuggling in the movie. That was the reason that one of the bad guys killed another one of the bad guys. That was the fake story that they put out to cover up their real, nefarious deeds.
Sure.
And just things like, they read in one of our earlier drafts that the guy on top of a canopy stack is the guy who steers. And it doesn't matter what the guy on the bottom does. He's helpless. He's at the mercy of the guy on top. Right. And so they said, oh, okay, well, we're going to turn that into an assassination. And so I got to do that stunt. I was playing Gary Busey and nice. Rusty Vest, who works at PD, former Golden Knight. He was on the bottom. And so, that's how Hollywood thinks. They take something they think is cool, and then they try to turn it into a plot point to turn the story. And so Gary Busey drags one of his bad guys that had made a boo-boo, and he dragged him into a power station and electrocuted him for it.
That one, it was really, really funny because, of course, I watched the movie well before I was a jumper, and then became a skydiver, became a tandem instructor eventually, and had gone back and watched the movie years later. And I got to admit, I was rolling on the floor laughing with some of the stuff that's there, but it's still, I mean, one of the best skydiving based movies ever. It's so fun. And it's filled with mistakes. There's a place where the turbo porter rolls up and you hear the sound of a, I don't know what, but it's not a turbo porter. It's a piston.
A piston aircraft, and, just all kinds of things like that. But again, the idea is to try to get skydiving in front of as many people as possible. And we were really lucky. We had a guy named Patrick de Gallardon, an old roommate of mine, who did a Reebok commercial. And no one in the outside community had seen sky surfing. And he just lit it up in this Reebok commercial that everyone was talking about. And then we had Point Break, Terminal Velocity, and Drop Zone all come out like within 18 months of each other.
Yeah.
And the industry really exploded there for a while. Everybody was buying more tandem rigs and hiring more tandem instructors, and people were moving, from Florida up north during the summer so that they could handle this wave of interest.
Sure.
And then unfortunately it died down after, and suddenly there were too many planes and too many drop zones and too much gear, and we had a kind of recession, if you will, within the industry.
Sure.
But to be part of that big boom was really satisfying.
Well, I mean, I'm one of the generation that got bit by that particular bug because all those movies came out and I was very influenced by all of them. I mean, just the visuals alone, forget the gaffes and how goofy some of the stuff turns out in the final cut. The actual free fall scenes and the actual skydiving stuff just blew me away, like it did a whole lot of people. And I'm one of the lucky ones that stuck with it and kept going.
Yeah, we did a 31 way in that movie, and all of the Hollywood experts, the helicopter pilots and all these people who wanted to tell management that they were this experts on the show, said that we shouldn't do that scene, that we were going to end up, jumping for a week and we wouldn't be able to complete the first formation. And we put Jack Jeffries in the center of I think it's a 9-way star that's built around him. And then we built a 20-something star around the 9-way star. And then we had the 20-way star and Jack spin in one direction while the 9-way spun in the other direction. And Norman Kent did, I think it's in that movie, he did this new thing where you flip on your back and shoot up. Because remember, we weren't doing that back then.
Right.
That was really leading edge innovation there. The idea that Norman could flip on his back and still remain stable and keep us in the frame. And so it was really satisfying to show all those naysayers that the skydiving guys could do what they came to do.
Sure. Well, and I've been lucky enough on the podcast to talk to a few people that have been in and around it. I had Mo Valetto on talking about some of the stuff that he's done, and a couple of active stunt people now. And it's always funny to hear a non-jumping Hollywood side that has no clue what's going on not want to listen to the people that literally do this for a living.
Yep.
They're
all experts out there, and they're all trying to protect what they see as their territory. The best Mo story was he was doubling an actor. Was it Jeters? Anyway, the actor that Mo was doubling was an Academy Award nominee. He was a phenomenal actor.
Yes.
He died of AIDS a few years later. But at that time, and Mo was the right height, and they cut his hair to match. They cut Mo's hair to match this guy, but this guy was a jumper. This actor had like 50 jumps,
right?
And so we put him on the front of a tandem, and Rusty stuck him out the door, and he screamed and yelled, doing his acting performance as someone who didn't want to jump, when in reality he loved it. But he's screaming no, and we popped the baggage door off the back of Mr. Douglas so that Norman could stick a camera out aft of the door. And so then Rusty turns the actor straight toward the camera and falls on his back so that Norman can be right in his face. And we sent the dailies back to Paramount Pictures. It's a big $72 million investment. And they sent us this fax congratulating us. Guy, you're the greatest. Where did you ever get a Michael Jeter double? He looks exactly like him. It's incredible. We can't believe it. And that's because we used the real actor.
Which is amazing. And I mean, I was lucky enough to get Mo on the podcast and talk to him about some of that stuff. And he talked about some of the jumps that he did in his involvement in the film. And I mean, you knew Mo. I mean, the guy had a way with telling a story for sure.
He got us through all the base jumps, whether it was him on camera or not. Sometimes it was, another time it was Patrick Swayze's brother, Donnie Swayze,
right,
who's still a member of our team. And the hardest thing for Mo is that he had to go on the front of, it had to be 60 tandem jumps. as an experienced jumper, being on the front of a tandem is not fun.
No.
And I mean, and the guy that was on the back, Utah Steve, he's a great tandem master and, nailed the top of the building every time, but still it's hard to be on the front of a tandem. And so Mo really earned his pay on that show.
Well, I'm assuming you guys were jumping, vectors or strongs?
Vectors.
So hanging a little bit head low, not the most comfortable harnesses in the world. Those are the ones that I learned how to do tandems on. So yes. I can imagine 30 rides on the front in an old vector harness. Woo.
And landing on the rooftops of skyscrapers.
Yeah.
where if you missed, you were going to die.
Yeah.
There were no outs. There was no, okay, if you missed the building, you just go over to this big golf course over here. There wasn't any of that. It was downtown Miami and downtown Woodland Hills. And I mean, you had to land on these buildings. There was no out.
And that's one of the coolest things about those films too, is that this is well before CGI, where nowadays half of the shit that you guys had to do for real, they just computer generate.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that hurts the worst is when they show computer generated canopy deployments. Oh, they're so awful.
Yeah.
And if you look at Dropzone, when the 31 way is filmed, they had us all scatter as if we had tracked off, but they had us all scatter, but stay in the frame. And then we were all supposed to dump in, a 2.5 second window.
Right.
And we did, but we got stunt pay for it because everybody would land and we were all shaking. And of course, Hollywood, they say, okay, we got to go up and do it a couple more times. And we're going, oh God.
We just barely survived that one.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to fly for one of the Mission Impossible movies where they had done the skydive over what was supposed to be Paris. But we did all the jumps over the desert, and I remember watching the dailies, and Tom Cruise actually does all the jumps, and the video is fantastic footage. It was shot by Craig O'Brien, who of course is an incredible camera flyer. And I was super excited because I was part of it. And then the movie comes out and they took this beautiful real footage of a great skydive done by Tom Cruise and superimposed it over a fake Paris and made the entire thing look like crap.
It's the saddest thing. And what the computer effects are really good at is, putting a big building where there isn't a building, or erasing a traffic light where there really is a traffic light. That type of stuff they do quite well. But man, when they try to do free fall with actors, and when they try to do deployments and landings and all of that stuff, it looks horrible, and the audience knows it's fake.
Yeah.
And so what's nice about Point Break and Dropzone and Terminal Velocity, these kinds of movies, is that for the most part it was real.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize, at least a lot of the younger listeners don't realize, that Patrick Swayze was doing his own jumps in Point Break.
Yep.
I mean,
taught by Jeff Jones and his brother Donnie.
Yeah, I mean, he was an accomplished skydiver, and I remember going back and watching that footage before and after I was a skydiver, going, wait, shit, I think that's real. And I'm really going to date myself. This is before you could pick up your phone and Google to find out, of course. And then you find out, holy shit, he really did do all those jumps. And then I find out that he was an active jumper in Paris, and his brother was, and it was super cool.
Yep, and he was on the Oprah Winfrey show. And his brother called in as a call-in guest on the show and told him that he was at the Dropzone, and Patrick went into this whole thing about how much he loves jumping and how he's going to leave the show to go straight to the Dropzone.
How cool is that?
And it really helped the sport. I mean, that scene, for whatever reason, you take all the scenes in Terminal Velocity, Dropzone, Cutaway. I've jumped as Sylvester Stallone. I've jumped as Arnold Schwarzenegger. None of them triggered as many first jump courses or tandem jumps as Point Break.
Yeah.
There was something about that location, that lake. And I don't know if it was the dialogue, they had a 2-minute skydive where they talked the whole time. But whatever it was,
Yep.
that and there were some years. What years would this have been? This
Ooh,
would have been 90, I think 96 or 97. And
Yeah.
I think that the Dropzone owners were manning their phones when Point Break came on HBO because they noticed an uptick in phone calls where people literally saw that scene and grabbed the phone and called to make a first jump reservation.
I bet. Well, you
Yeah.
know, I think one of the big things was you had Patrick Swayze. He's got that super cool surfer long hair. He's got just his Krups goggles on and a rig, and goes backwards out the door, and then of course cut to this amazing scenery and the 2-minute free fall and all that stuff. But it was so engaging. I mean, it was just such a really cool visual, and I believe it was over Lake Powell.
Yes.
It's just a gorgeous spot. So, I mean, I think all those things combined just made it, a can't miss.
Yeah, it was a beautiful scene. And then they brought it back at the end of the movie. So there were 2 full skydiving scenes in Point Break. And people think that it's a skydiving movie, but if you actually watch the movie, it's a surf movie.
Yep.
The skydiving footage so overwhelms the surfing footage that people remember it in their minds as a skydiving flick.
Oh, absolutely. I ended up doing a couple of tandems for, I'm sure you've seen the TV show Mythbusters. They busted the Point Break myths, and I took 2 of the guys.
I gotta see that. You gotta send me that.
Oh, I will. It's great. So they wanted to see if you could have a 50-second free fall from 4,000 feet. So they chucked Buster out of the plane at foreground and let him go in. Then they wanted to see if you could talk in free fall and if you could catch somebody if you jumped out 15 seconds later. And of course, 2 of the 3 myths we busted because Buster died and you can't hear a damn thing in free fall. The one that they kind of verified was that you can catch somebody if you jump out 15 seconds later. It helps if one of them's towing a drogue and the other one is going as fast as humanly possible. But, but it was fun. It was fun. I mean, you know how Mythbusters does stuff. So it was very entertaining.
Hey, you want to hear a weird one?
Please.
Of how skydiving can, take you to the edge of the human experience, or however you want to put it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you mentioned talking in free fall, it took me to a jump. It was August 8th, 1988. So it was 8/8/88, and we're at this thing called the Freak Brother Convention.
Ah.
Which is now, what do they call it now? Jump Fest or
Summerfest.
Summerfest. Okay, so Summerfest used to be called the Freak Brother Convention, and we were going for the 144-way world record. It was the largest formation at that time, and Roger Nelson and I were the captains of that effort, along with Roger Ponce, and we got it in our dumb heads that the easiest formation to build would be a diamond, a big flat blanket with no hole in the center.
Right.
And because earlier that spring, we had built the first 81-way diamond. We built the first 64-way diamond, the first 81-way diamond, and the first 64-way jewel, all within like 3 weeks of each other. So we're just busting all these records. And our logic was, well, if these are so easy, then maybe we shouldn't go for a 150-way. Maybe we should go for a 144-way diamond. And we didn't know that, any of the physics of whether there was, like a problem with high pressure air being built up underneath this thing. And I mean, we still don't know. Everybody's got their theories.
Right.
But one thing that we do know is that Bruce Turner and I were facing each other in the base 4-way diamond that's in the center of that 144-way diamond. And it was his job to look behind me to see if anybody had gone low. And it was my job to look behind him to see if anybody had gone low, because if anybody had gone low, we would break off the formation early to try to increase the safety factor.
Sure.
But if he didn't see anybody behind me and I didn't see anybody behind him, we didn't break it off. We held it because we needed that 3 seconds in order to establish the record, even if we sucked it down lower than we should have. And so we're looking underneath each other to see if anybody is low behind us. And we're, in our excitement, we're shouting to each other. And of course we can't hear, anything, but we're mouthing the words, "Are you good?" And he's looking at me and nodding his head. He's going, "Yeah, I'm good. Are you good?" And when the final outside row came on, going from a 100-way diamond to a 144-way diamond, instantly we could talk.
Really?
And we weren't even shouting. We were talking to each other. And he said, "Yeah, are you done?" He goes, "Yeah, it looks good to me. How about you?" I said, "Yeah, no, we're everybody's in." And then as soon as we kicked our legs to get everybody to leave on the outside, and as soon as the outside row left, then it was normal free fall again.
Wow.
But at 144, we could talk. It was really spooky.
That's bizarre. I can't
It was fun.
I can't wrap my head around why that would be possible, but that's cool.
It's that there was no disturbed air over us, because the outer rim of this giant blanket created an echo chamber or whatever, an acoustic chamber above our heads, and we could talk.
Wow.
And it happened on 3 jumps in a row, because it took us a couple times to get every last guy in.
Sure.
But as soon as that outer row filled in, we could communicate.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, it was cool.
The only time I've ever heard anybody in free fall was off of a helicopter, and we weren't even thinking about the fact that we're going from zero. And as we let go of the helicopter and start falling, I remember being more shocked than anything, not about the jump or where we were, but that I could hear my buddy laughing.
Yep.
Because it was just the strangest thing.
Occasionally a pilot will hear a tandem student, stepping off the step. We'll hear a shriek.
Oh, but, I've heard them scream a million times. That's been my favorite pastime for about 16 years now. Listening to tandem passengers scream. Now you've got more projects in the works. Not like you haven't already accomplished enough, but you've got more stuff coming up, don't you?
Yeah, we've got another movie, and we're launching a new company based on a new way to make movies. And this new way was built entirely around skydiving and skydiving big ways in particular. And so what we learned when Norman and I hopped over, to the feature film industry, to the Hollywood industry, we saw them, wasting just tens of millions of dollars on shots that never make it into the movie, scenes that never make it into the movie, or methods that Norman and I knew were never going to work in the first place. And because he and I had come from this background where you do this extensive rehearsal, you pre-visualize the outcome, and pre-visualize is just a fancy way of saying dirt dive.
Sure.
When we dirt dive, when we get together to choreograph a skydive for a recreational jump on the weekend at the Dropzone, you don't sit down in a circle and talk about what you're going to do. You stand up and you dirt dive. You choreograph the thing, because that tells you everything you need to know about what's going to happen in the air.
Sure.
And so we got to Hollywood, and these guys are just jabbering at us all the time and waving their arms around in the air, rather than simply showing us a picture or a video or allowing us to rehearse it. And so when we started to take over higher and higher positions, Norman and I were first hired as stuntmen, but then we became, Norman became the director of photography, and I became a writer and a director, and Craig Franck and Jeff Jones became producers, and BJ became, stunt supervisors and stunt coordinators. So as we all moved up the ladder, at first we did everything the Hollywood way, because we figured that if they're wasting all this money, then let's let them waste it on us.
Sure.
And they did. And it worked, for example, I made half a dozen base jumps in Cliffhanger, and only one of them's in the movie.
Right.
And yet I got paid for the other 5. And so, that philosophy kind of worked. But as we started moving up the ladder, we discovered that if we can wrangle and wrestle these scenes away from these so-called Hollywood experts, not only can we put more money in our pocket, but we can do it by saving them money. Because when they waste $10 million, they don't waste it all on us. They just hose it all over the universe, and none of us gets to keep any of it. Right. And so we devised this system based on this thing called pre-vis technology. It's a low cost, very rapid iteration animation technology.
Okay.
And so basically we make a cartoon of the movie before we shoot the movie, and then we don't have to go out and shoot 1,000 different angles to figure out what we want, because we already know what we want because we did it in our cartoon.
Sure.
So that's the short version. And so now we're finally launching a company based on these skydiver innovations. And so our mission is to stop asking Hollywood to do these movies for us and to just take over the whole process and do it our way.
Sure.
And so we want to make an entire skydiving based movie, like Drop Zone, like Terminal Velocity, like Cutaway, to make one of that species, but to do it at a much, much higher budget level, yet without actually spending that much money. Because these technologies allow you to magnify your budget in a way.
Sure.
And so we're aiming at this movie called Vegas Falls, and it's loaded with wind tunnels and base jumps and wingsuits and everything you can name. And we want to get the skydiving community behind it. We're going to buy a bunch of gear. We need a bunch of instructors to train our actors. We need a bunch of stunt doubles. We need what are called aerial extras, where you have a couple hundred people in the air. They're actually extras in a way, but they obviously have to be great skydivers. And the interesting thing about the way we're launching this company is we're launching it on a platform called startengine.com.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of this?
I haven't. Please tell me.
It's owned by one of the billionaires on Shark Tank.
Okay.
Shark Tank, that show where people come and pitch their businesses. Well, he owns this platform where startups can sell their stock on this platform of his, and he handles all the SEC regulations, and there's all this accounting and legal work that would have to be done that your average entrepreneur startup really isn't sophisticated enough to handle. Sure. But he does that part for you. And of course he takes, a small cut, but he makes his money because of the scale of the whole thing. And so we are launching on this platform called startengine.com in just a week or two. And so not only can the skydivers watch the development of this movie and come out and be in this movie, but they can actually own the movie.
Wow.
own the company that's making the movie. And you can do it for a little bit, or you can do it for a lot. But the point is you can be a part. Sure. And so we're hoping that the skydiving community will at least go look at it and, buy some stock if they're psyched for us, or at least root for us and get the word out so that somebody else buys some stock, and we're going to make this movie.
That's epic. Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, especially when it comes to stuff like skydiving, Hollywood seems to just fuck it up, not make it better. I mean,
they do not make it better, and they're clueless. And we thought on Cutaway that by having us in some of the key positions, that would be enough, that we could save them from themselves, and we were wrong. What we did do on Cutaway is we proved that it could be done at a lower price.
Sure.
People don't know this, but Drop Zone costs $72 million and Cutaway costs $9 million.
Wow.
And yet there's more skydiving in the $9 million movie than in the $72 million movie.
Wow.
The problem is that Hollywood was still in charge of everything that wasn't the skydiving.
Sure.
And so now our mission on this one, on Vegas Falls, with this startengine.com thing, is we're having skydivers wall to wall. We're not, no one other than us is going to touch this movie.
How epic is that?
Yeah. So we're psyched, and we really need the skydiving community to get behind it in whatever way, they'd like.
Sure. Now, what kind of a time frame are we talking about? When are you guys hoping to be able to start going into production? Do you guys already have a script and all that stuff, or is it?
We already have the script. It's written by myself and Peter Barsacchini, the same guys who wrote Dropzone.
Awesome.
And the same guys who wrote Shadow Ops. Most people don't know it, but there was a television series pilot made off of the success of Dropzone. Dropzone was a real weird creature in that it did not do well at the box office. Michael Douglas and Demi Moore came out with a movie on the same day, and people flocked to it, and they flocked away from Dropzone. So Dropzone didn't do, it didn't do horrible, but it didn't do great at the box office. But it had it still has a really strong cable life. They still play it today on HBO.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the other thing is that the video store business was just getting off the ground in those days. And I remember the price of a Dropzone VHS tape was $135.
Holy God.
Can you imagine, buying a videotape for $135?
Wow.
But yet that's what it cost, because in those days, the studios thought we're going to get top dollar for our video because most of the people buying the video are going to rent it, and we're not getting a taste of that.
Right.
And so Dropzone had this incredible video store life where they had to order more videos because the videos were wearing out. And so as soon as Dropzone would come back into the store, it would go back out again. And so we're with this new picture, we know what the formula for success is. Not only is it to make the movie with all these new technologies that we've got, but it's to have skydivers in the left seat and the right seat and every seat.
Sure, which is amazing. I think back to, Dropzone and Cutaway are both cult classics. I don't know a single skydiver that hasn't seen them multiple times. Even with the gaffes and all that stuff and the Hollywood doing what they did, people still love the movie. So the idea of somebody being able to do it properly is incredible. You think about like the new Point Break. The only thing I liked about the new Point Break were the wingsuiting scenes for multiple reasons. One, because they were incredibly shot, and two, because those were friends of mine. And I knew what went into it, and I knew how incredibly well thought out it was, which made it that much more impressive. And there was no doubt that it was real. And nowadays, with the YouTube generation being what it is, that has access to so much of what we do, they'll spot a fake in a heartbeat. So you guys being able to do it the right way with the real people, amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And it's really not that tough to imagine, because you look at, like, let's say the last 5 skydiving scenes that Hollywood has put out. They did one in, was it called Gray Man?
Yep.
They did a big skydiving scene. And then there was this other Mark Wahlberg movie with the new Spider-Man kid.
Yep.
They did a movie that had a big skydiving scene. So if you go back through the last 5 skydiving scenes, all these movies had, $150 million budgets. And yet the best skydiving footage is on YouTube from us, from the skydiving community.
Yes.
And that isn't right.
No.
Why should the best wingsuiting be on Facebook? Guys that are doing it for free. And yet when Hollywood comes out and does it, they can't do as good a job as the guys that are doing it for free.
Yeah, and not even close. It's painfully obvious that Hollywood talks to skydivers last when they do anything like that, if they talk to us at all.
And so with Norman and I, at the helm of this thing, and and everybody, BJ, Shuby, Tom Sanders, all of us old guard, we're just going to recruit the hell out of the young guys and get all their best stuff and wrap it into a movie.
Which is absolutely epic. Now, because of that, I'm going to ask, it's a perfect transition to find out, people are listening right now and they are interested in the company, they are interested in being a part of the film, they are interested in helping out, how do they get a hold of you or find out more about this specifically? Where do they go to send in an application or a resume or a demo reel or something like that?
Okay, the first and foremost thing that I've got to get out there, and I don't mean to ever sound like a salesman, but I got to say it, is startengine.com.
Cool.
Because if we don't get funded, none of this happens.
Sure.
And so the most important thing is that we get the word out. And I don't mean to, I'm not saying to stick my hand in the pockets of skydivers, but we, the skydiving community, have to get this word out.
Sure.
So even if you can't afford to buy a few shares of the stock, please help us push it with your social media and with your family and friends so that we get to bat, if you will.
Sure.
And then from there, our website is CineLogic.pro. It's not .com, it's .pro. So CineLogic.pro.
Okay.
And that's the company that will be being sold on startengine.com. And so either way, either route gets you to me and the team. And I would love to have everybody's reels and resumes and all that. But our first mission, the first point in this skydive is for us to get funding.
Sure.
And so it's all about startengine.com, and that should be happening in just about a week or two.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now startengine.com is what they need to be keeping their eyes on and telling everybody about. Even if they can't afford to chip in, they can still help spread the word. Hopefully,
Right.
If this goes the way that it's supposed to, then they can start bugging me and you to send those demo reels and all that stuff, because it sounds like it's going to be an amazing project.
Precisely. And when you say chip in, I just wanted to clarify that this is not crowdfunding. Like when one of us prangs in from a bad hook turn and
Sure.
they put crowdfunding up to donate for this guy's medical bills or what have you. This is not that kind of crowdfunding. This is buying stock. Awesome. You are an investor. You are an owner in what we're launching here. And so it can be really fun.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, just the opportunity to try and be a part of something where skydivers get to represent themselves the right way, and not have the gaffes because it's done by a bunch of jumpers that, no, wait, that's bullshit. It needs to be done this way or that way. And that's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Now, I tell you what, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to sit down with me and tell me not only about your start and everything, but especially about the new project coming up. I have a feeling I'm going to need to hit you up for more times on the podcast, because if this thing keeps rolling, I'm going to want updates.
Very good. We'd love to come back, especially when we go live. Like I said, I'm saying a week or two, but I don't know exactly, but I will get that date to you. And we want to get me back on here as soon as we can, especially if we start getting some momentum from the skydivers. The expression they use is that nothing draws a crowd like a crowd. And so we need to trigger this snowball effect very quickly when the time comes.
Awesome.
And so yes, I would love to come back. And we didn't cover half of the stuff I've seen.
Oh, no. Well, believe me, there's going to need to be a round two, because I know you've got a shitload of stories that we did not delve into at all, but I really wanted to talk about the new project. So I'll get you to stay on even after we stop recording so I can get some more info from you. But again, thank you so much for taking the time, and fingers crossed, I hope it goes big.
Thanks, man.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
And there you have it. Another episode of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void, brought to you as always by, and say it with me, fuck yeah, NZ Aerosports. Head to nzaerosports.com. By Pussfoot. That's right, head to pussfoot.com, the Extreme Sports Collective, and check out everything they've got to offer. By summitparachutesystems.com. Jarrett Martin and the family cranking out amazing pilot rigs, as well as incredible rigging courses. And now joining the Lunatic team, it's the one and only Tony Suits. You know him, you love him. Head to tonysuit.com. Check out all the amazing standards, as well as the new incredible signature line they've got going on. And as for us, the Lunatic Fringe is now on YouTube. That's right, you're going to have the chance to put faces to the audio by heading to youtube.com and looking up the Lunatic Fringe podcast. It's easy. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, check out all the amazing videos from the previous guests that we've had, as well as new and upcoming interviews on video. As always, I am the fucking pilot. Head to thefuckingpilot.net or theprincesspilot.com. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time around.
Damn.